And welcome, people. Thank you for joining us. And Ariel, Serkin and Tanea Hibler volunteered, did they? To do the presentation today.
I mean, we could be voluntold, but you know,
Yeah.
this is something we
Yeah.
are, but we're very passionate about this, and you know, we might be
Oh, I
exhausted, but we're
know.
happy to be here.
And since you already have these kind of things, and I tried to push somebody else because one of the other workshop leaders was not able to be here, and this is what he is doing for his students at the educational institution he is at. So I said, "Oh, are you interested in doing part 3? We'll think about it." He has everything ready, I would say, so I think he could, but we'll see. But for right now, it's Ariel and Tanea, so thank you for presenting, and the floor is yours.
Okay, so now I'll share my screen.
Okay.
Okay.
Yay, it's so pretty.
I know, I thought it was a pretty background. I felt like it, you know, we're colorful people. Hopefully I can do this right. Hi, everyone. Sorry, I just need to flip all my screens around. I don't know about you, but do all of you feel like you have 15 screens going at the same time? You're always flipping from the right ones? Yeah. And then, like, where's your cursor?
Yeah, and I have too many plugs, so I don't even know how to plug in my other screen at the moment. Give up.
Well, I guess as we're getting started, I want to thank all of you for being here. For those of you who are currently teaching in the classroom, I know for me, I find this an exhausting school year. So the fact that you're taking an hour to come to this, it means a lot to me. I'm not going to speak for Tanea, but I know that.
No, it means a lot to me too. I really appreciate it.
All right, here we go. All right, listen, quickly, if you can just rename yourself just to let us know. You have your name, but include what pronouns. In fact, I need to do that too. What you teach or what workshops you host or what your role is. And as you're doing that, we're going to ask you to consider the following. Reflect back on the first AMTA workshop that you took and what was valuable about it to you. So just rename yourself and just reflect for a moment. For people who are popping in, we're just having you rename yourself, and we're just taking a moment to think about this question. And again, rename yourself, again, your name, preferably pronouns, what you teach or what workshops you host or you lead, so we can put this all together. It's not necessarily what courses you're teaching currently, because we all have a million. And we're thinking about this big question: consider your experience taking an AMTA workshop and what was valuable. And I invite you to unmute yourselves now and share your thoughts from that first experience.
I guess one of the things I appreciated was that we were, even though I think most of us came to the workshop feeling like, oh, I got this physics. I know it. I know my physics. I'm here to learn about like just the methods, the pedagogy. And I feel like we dug into physics and some of these concepts that I like had been teaching for a long time in ways that also brought some even deeper content understanding, but also how to get the kids to that level of content understanding. So I think there was just this approach to the content and the pedagogy at the same time that was really valuable.
My first workshop, I honestly needed something to survive because my first year was horrible. I had no idea what I was doing. And they kept asking me to teach stuff. I was like, this has nothing to do with my degree. Why are you asking me to teach this? You people are crazy. So I was just trying to survive. And so it was, I was very much in survival mode. I wanted to get through the year without crying so much.
And then it came 2020 and you cry every day? No, just me.
Oh no, you're not the only one. I've been crying every day too.
Thanks, Tanea, for sharing. Who else wants to talk about their first experiences, your first modeling workshops?
Well, for me, it was the chance to collaborate with a lot of other people interested in the same thing. You know, I didn't come from, I started in a different career totally, and was the only physics teacher at the school. Often was the only person around who was at all interested in physics. So it was just so refreshing to be able to be with a group of other people who shared a similar interest, and we could talk about that. And I came up with a lot of new perspectives on the way to do things.
Thank you, Bill. I'm going to be honest. I'm going to make everybody talk. So if you don't unmute, I'll call on you at some point.
I'll talk about my first workshop was middle school modeling, and I feel like I was looking for, like, I was doing inquiry, which was just like fun, like cool activities, and then like moving on, like assuming they got it. And AMTA was the first time that I understood, like, this is how you package it in a way that actually equals understanding, that allows that process to happen. And I also just remember that I had some, even at the middle school, like in the middle school modeling, I had some misconceptions as an adult that I was passing on to my students. So yeah, that's what I think about when I think back to the first workshop.
When I think back about my first workshop, was at ASU in the middle of the summer. Everybody laying in the hallways at ASU, doing the dune buggies. Nobody had to pretend to be in student mode. At that point, we had not heard what student mode was. We were all elementary, middle school teachers, so physics was a long time ago, and it was just a whole lot of fun, and we learned a lot. And tears were shed too. But so that was a middle school M&S program before the middle school materials were developed.
So my first modeling workshop was physics and chemistry, and being a biology and anatomy person, boy, that hurt. And it was extremely challenging. And I think my tears were because I realized I was changing and I could no longer be the same teacher I was. And so, yeah, I cried a lot in that workshop.
Thank you so much. Melissa.
My first was actually as an undergrad. I took the mechanics workshop as my methods of teaching course, and I remember being the only undergrad in the class, and was made to feel that was very obvious. So I'm very sensitive to that. When I have I have undergrads in my workshops, that I remember that feeling that I didn't always feel very welcome. Put that out there.
Thank you for that perspective. Jess.
Yeah, I remember my first one. It's when I got to feel what hell is like out in Arizona in June and July. That was wonderful. So that was fun. But it provided a framework for me. I was a inquiry-hungry young teacher with no real skill on how to present it to students in a cognitively coherent manner. And it just provided a framework that really made that possible, so that today will build on what we did yesterday and the day before and the day before. And so ultimately it's about, you know, creating a coherent and cogent storyline throughout the entire structure. And that was in 2005, and it was with Jeff and Kelly.
Well, that clearly means that Kelly has to talk next, obviously.
I really want to share my second workshop, because my first workshop was the undergraduate. Well, I was getting certified to teach pre-service teacher and took the methods of teaching physics course. So I had this before I started teaching. And when I took methods of teaching math, I was like, how come they don't have the same thing that they have for physics? What's going on? Where are the models? But my second one is what I really want to talk about. I got to come back as part of the grant at Arizona State in 1995 to be a participant then as a second year teacher. And I think they only let me in as part of the grant because I didn't cost any money. They didn't need to fly me from across the country or anything. They just let me attend on a day-to-day basis. But I was a young teacher in there with people who had been teaching for years and were Woodrow Wilson teacher fellows and leaders in the AAPT. And I just felt so humbled and as if I, you know, was in the company of these amazing people. But definitely the most valuable thing were the relationships that came out of that. I had mentors for the rest of my career of people who I still rely on to help me be a better teacher. So it was pretty special.
And Bill and Colleen, if either of you would like to share your experiences, we'd love to hear them as well.
Okay, I don't see. Oh, Bill, you unmuted. Go ahead.
I'll do it. Yeah. Well, I had taught using the materials for a year, not having been to a workshop. So because my colleague asked me to do it with her and try it, and we did. So the following summer, I jumped into like an advanced chem, like a chem 2. That was my first experience. And it was like, what the hell is going on? Like, why didn't I learn this in my undergrad? Like I knew, you know, like most of the answers, but like, I guess I realized I never knew why. And that was like shocking and disappointing because I went to a really good undergrad school. So, but probably the thing I got most from it was, you know, obviously just a better understanding. So when we tell people you can't just use the materials, you really need to attend a workshop. That's absolutely true because that's a lived experience for me. And just the camaraderie, it was really awesome to just sit around and kind of be nerdy, but yet be cool at the same time with a group of people. And that's where I met some really good friends that I'm still in touch with today. That's about 10 years later.
And I will just say briefly that I think the big thing for me, the revelation for me was this is a way to get my students to talk. This is a way that I can hear them think. You know, being able to do that discourse and hear each other think. And then the gift of student mode. I did not have to be an expert. In fact, I did my best work when I was being the most difficult student. But yeah, figuring it, you know, that a way to get my students to talk, that was great.
And I guess I should share mine is that I was really nervous at the beginning. I always feel, and I'm finally not feeling as much as a lot of imposter syndrome when the fact that I'm a science teacher and my undergrad's in history. So there's a lot of imposter syndrome there, like what am I doing here? So I always need to learn more and do more to be halfway good enough. And then, it actually reinforced at the beginning, like, I really don't belong here. I don't know all of these answers. They're PhDs in biochem with me. What am I doing? And then I realized everybody was in the same boat. And then before long, as most of you know, I met my very best friend at the modeling workshop. So for those of you who don't know, it's the Ariel and Teresa Marks team. That's how most of you know us, is that we're a pair. And we met at a modeling workshop, and we haven't looked back. And that was 2015. But I hope you listen to each other. And there was a reason for this. It was not just to say, oh, we love AMTA. But what I heard, and what I heard you talk about is you talked about relationships. I heard you talk about developing new thought processes and those conceptual models. The feedback you were getting was really important, and how you wanted to do that for your students. Do you know what I didn't hear? I got an A in this graduate class I took. I had all these assignments and I did all the points. And I like to hear students talk, and I think the conversations are really important. I didn't hear I got participation checkpoints, because it's about the learning and the understanding and not about the grade.
And let me just say that the learning and understanding, what I've discovered is, especially because of AMTA, my first workshop was, like I said, for survival, when they had me teaching this general science class and a physical science class, and I was like, I shouldn't even be teaching this. And then later on, I switched and I took the biology modeling workshop, and that was because I had a joy and a love for biology, and I wanted to be the best biology teacher that I could possibly be. And I knew the experience I had had in the past. But like the growth never, you're never too old, and you never have too much experience that you can't grow and learn and change your practices. And that's what AMTA has taught me. There's always room for me to be a better teacher, and there's always room for me to learn something from somebody who's done it before me. And then, if I can't expect my students to be willing to be open and learn if I'm not also willing to do that. So I'm constantly, I want to reflect and grow as long as I'm alive on this earth,
In case somehow you missed who we are. I didn't even know if I should keep the slide in, but hey, I'm Ariel.
I'm Tanea. We do a lot of stuff.
We don't sleep. It's interesting collaborating across time zones. Yes. But I am always grateful to work with Tanea, and I'm so grateful to AMTA for bringing us together, and to Colleen actually for leadership, where we met and we became pretty much instant friends. So, okay, that's us. We're not interested. Oh my, you know what? I hadn't even been watching the chat at all. I'm sorry, my fault. I forgot to have it open.
It's okay.
It's good. We're saying at the beginning, you have so many screens that it's like sometimes you forget what you're trying to watch where. All right, I love it. Okay, so let's consider 2 students. And then I might actually add another student, which will be my own child. Student A is, does all their work. They're the really sweet kid. They will check off every single homework. They're polite. They're nice. You really love seeing this kid because they have a good vibe. They have a good energy. They fail everything. Like everything. Every assessment, they tank. And then you have this other student. They do no homework. Their attitude, they appear to put a little effort. Their attitude, they're kind of abrasive. Or at least you perceive them to be abrasive. They might not even be abrasive, but at least your perception is they are. And yet, ow, ow, ow. Sorry. You haven't seen Tabitha yet. It's not an AMTA workshop if you haven't met Tabitha. And yet, they seem to do well on every single assessment. Tell me about their grades. And I purposely didn't put any scores up there. But tell us what grades you think they should get based on your experience as a teacher and what goes into your grades.
And think about this pandemic year if you want. It could be the kid at home that's virtual that's getting all the great grades and the kid in class that's not, or vice versa. Throw your answers out there.
It's just us. Like, we're not judging you. I mean, we could totally judge you. No, this is a conversation. This is really just a conversation between colleagues.
So this is a trick question for me because I use standards-based grading. So it really depends on their performance and showing progress towards the goals of the lesson.
Okay, so for you,
they could both be earning the same grade, possibly, or maybe not, depending on their progress.
All right, so we do have something here about their assessment. Student A does seem to fail every assessment. So whatever we are learning objectives we are assessing, they seem to fail them.
Are they failing every assessment the first time, or this is like after every assessment, after they've kind of corrected their misconceptions, or?
Exactly, because I give lots of retests.
All right, Bill threw in the chat C- or D for student A and BB+ for student A and BB+ for student B.
Or maybe they both should get C's.
Yeah, I just a disclaimer, I have not taught high school in a pretty long time. But I had a lot of students like both student A and student B. And so my grading policy was that the assessments were only worth 40% of the grade. And the other 60% of the grade was other things. Labs were a huge part of the grade. Homework, if they did it, I had homework as optional. If a kid needed to do homework, they could do homework and get points for it. If they didn't feel they needed to do homework, it wouldn't count against them if they didn't do it. And I had a project as 20% of the grade that they got, and the project was a big collaborative project that often it was designing and building something that had to work in a certain way. This was physics class, so the kid B is probably going to end up getting C or C+ maybe, and kid A might get the same thing, might even get a little better because they have done every other blasted thing that they could. They could easily get a B. So that was the system that I used. This was before standards-based grading. As a footnote to that, I didn't give retakes. You had to show up on the day of the test and take the test. But I did let you throw out your lowest test score. And that was just an incentive to show up and do what you could on an assessment. I taught at for most of those years, I taught at a girls' Catholic high school. I had the highest attendance rate on test days of anybody. Yeah, so there it is, fire away.
Excuse me. Well, this is interesting to me for a couple of reasons. One, I'm meeting with student A tomorrow at 3 p.m. And two, I just came from a school where we were not allowed to consider anything but their performance on summatives as part of their grade. So student B would have an A if he was doing that well. And I mean, student A would be, well, they would not have an A, a B, or a C. And now I'm at a school where the pendulum is very much the other way. It's about 35% of the grade it's mandated is his homework and things like that. So that would put student A in a pretty good position relative to student B. So it can really vary, and part of it's not up to your discretion. I had a student like student A years ago who just couldn't retain anything for 24 hours, would ask the same questions every day, but what always worked hard, was very much fit that standard, insisted on going on to AP Physics, and was the same way for most of AP Physics, and then ended up with a 4 on the test. So it's so I find it fascinating without actually giving you an answer. So yeah, I don't know, without having student A and seeing how hard they're trying, and they're putting in, they're coming in and trying to do it. Definitely, I would see them at least getting a C. Student B, well, again, if you're only looking at if they can actually show that they've learned something, that's what really it's about. If they learn it and they understand it, they shouldn't be punished for their attitude. So I'd have to give them what they earned on the assessments. Well, let's see. We've got a long chat here to read now.
So I was gonna chime in read what Jess said, is that they would roughly end up with about a C. So there's test corrections. So if student A, is that person, they'll do test corrections. They could buy it back. And there will be some punitive impact for failing to do homework. So, and then an anecdote about a B student who was a C-level student all year, and then turned it on when it mattered and scored a 5 on the exam. Don't those kids drive you crazy? Thank you. I'm going to add one more. It is the end in Massachusetts, it is the end of the first term. As in, my school ended its first term yesterday. Chris, yours must be around now too.
Yes. In fact, my grades are due at midnight.
Oh my gosh, and you're here?
I'm almost done.
Okay. And I'm going to be honest, I love my child. And I know this is being recorded, but my kid is not a good student. My kid is smart, and my kid is that student you hate. You don't hate them. They drive you crazy. If you just do your gosh darn work, you would do a whole lot better. And I am afraid, because he doesn't do work, and we've had a rough start to the year with the way things are, that he is going to be failing his classes in such a point where I am worried that in November he would have dug himself into a hole so bad he could fail for the year in November.
And could you clarify, are you virtual right now?
My kid is fully so I am hybrid. My kid is fully virtual.
So that's my son, his first quarter. Now they're on their second quarter now. They're in person, but the first quarter, I was like, I don't know what the heck you're doing, but you're not going to pass any of these classes. I think he got like B's and C's maybe, or something like that. But now that he's at school physically, he has A's, and I'm like, but if he's online, he's not doing anything he's supposed to do.
So I want you to consider the students who know that if they fail so badly term 1, they have to earn A's and B's every other term in order to pass for the year. I want you to think about what that is doing to your students right now and how they're going to be. So just keep that kid in the back of your mind.
Can you repeat that again?
I just want you to think about that kid. Right? Well, if that kid feels like they're in such a hole that they need to get straight A's and B's for every other quarter in order to pass for the whole year, what is that going to do to them? And just consider that. I don't want an answer. I just want you to consider, keep my pain in the butt kid, who I love more than anything, in the back of your head as we talk about this, because this is not a hypothetical student. This is really my child. All right. Tanea, take it away.
So I'd like to always say that we are not the experts. Not that I don't value what experts have to say, but I think that teachers need to have these discussions amongst other teachers at their schools and with their administrators. But we do have personal experiences. I am making mistakes right now. I guarantee it. And I've made mistakes in the past. I'm gonna make mistakes in the future. But I'm learning from those mistakes that I've made, and I think I can do better with my students. And I like to be able to talk with someone else about what worked for them and what didn't work for them. So hopefully we value each other's input and experiences. We as teachers are having a direct impact on our students, and a lot of times we don't realize the impact we have. We can say one thing or do one thing, and that could that relationship could go, you know, in a positive way or a negative way. We could turn someone off to going into a STEM field, or we could let someone feel like they could be the best, most amazing scientist ever, and that they're going to change the trajectory of their life because of what we've told them. So I think we're going to learn from each other today, and you know, beyond today. And I think that we can empower each other to make positive changes, but we also can demand from each other that we make some positive changes. Like if we're going to be in the profession of teaching, and we want people to respect the profession, I think we have to tell ourselves, like, look at, you know, what are we doing and what can we do better? What positive impact can we have on our school and with our students? And even if you are in a situation where you don't make up all the rules, you can talk and start sharing and asking, and you can push for change. So I want to be the teacher that is going to uplift the experience of all students and other teachers as well, and especially those students who are historically marginalized. If you look at who is doing well and who's being served by our institutions, it's not equal. If you look at what the graduation rates are in your state or at your school, and you look at it and you break it down by whether it be socioeconomic class or you break it down by race, there are groups of people who are being left behind, and the gap between the haves and the have-nots is getting greater and greater as we speak, and the pandemic is not helping any of that. And so do we want to just do what we've done if we know that we're leaving people behind and that we're changing maybe a whole community of people is being left behind? Do we want to say that we're just going to do this because this is what we've always done? Or do we want to say, let's think about, why is the system designed the way it is? Who has this system been designed to benefit? What were schools even made for in the first place? Like, why were these institutions made, and what was the goal and the outcome? Who was left out of schools from the very beginning? And when did all groups of people actually start to have equal access to education? Or do we actually have equal access to education in 2020 yet? I don't know. So I hope that you guys can just think about your own unique situation, and how do you respond to the situation that you're in, and change for the better for those kids that are in front of you that you adore and that you love, or maybe they annoy you a little bit, but you know, you still want the best for them. It matters. In case I didn't say that, it matters a lot.
Okay, but how does this relate to AMTA? This is because this is a workshop for workshop leaders. So why are we doing this? What does it have to do with AMTA? The answer is everything.
Everything. And can I say to you, like, as leaders of AMTA workshops, you do not know how much you are impacting somebody. It's not all the teachers who take your workshop are going to always be 100% honest about how your words have impacted them and how you have, like, led them to go back and change things in their classroom, or how much they see you as a mentor. They're not all going to tell you that. And maybe some of them won't ever reach out to you again, but like, literally you might be the person that's keeping this person from quitting, or you might be the person that's gonna motivate this person to be a different kind of teacher. And so what you say and what you don't say, you might be giving license, or you have authority. You know what I mean? Someone's gonna say, well, my mentor, my AMTA leader, workshop leader, they did this and it worked for them, so I'm gonna do that too. And so I think we have to consider, just like with the kids in our classroom, we're impacting those other adults that we're working with.
And in fact, just yesterday, I got an email from somebody in the first workshop I ever hosted. So like I wasn't even the leader. I was just the host, and I got an email from somebody in my workshop. Hi, I don't know if you remember me. And the answer is, of course I remember you. Yes, Jess. And like, I have a question about this particular thing. And it was just, I haven't heard from him since 2016 or 2017. And here he was. So it was pretty cool. Our goals, at least I think, when we're workshop leaders, is to talk about science education. What are these conceptual models we are developing, and how can we make students do that? Well, those ideas, at least what I think is, how does that relate to grading? How does grading impact our goals for science? Science education doesn't exist in isolation. So it's not just what I do in my classroom, but it's also how I'm assessing it. How are we grading students? How do we actually grade the impact that's of students? I have no idea what I originally was typing at one point. I think it was 11 o'clock at night. Sorry for the typos. Tanea, you were supposed to help me out with that one. How do we grade the impact of like student learning and student growth? I think that was supposed to be growth. We'll just add that. And I guess to me, the most important thing is we are preparing teachers to use this pedagogy in their classrooms. So doesn't pedagogy impact all components? So it's not just following this worksheet. And then, as Bill talked about, you can't just use a worksheet, right? It's like a worksheet is a worksheet is a worksheet. A lab is a lab is a lab. I have, a colleague who did take a workshop, but modeling wasn't going to work for her, and that's the way it is. And one day she said, "Oh, Ariel, I'm modeling today," and she was just doing a lab, and I just said, "Okay, that's great," but we all know that it's about the thinking and the process. It's about the pedagogy, not about a particular activity. But it's not just about the activities. It's not just about the deployments. It's not just about the particular assessments that people worked really hard to develop and tweak over the years. It's also, what do those assessments mean? And then how are we going to be providing our feedback and assessing our students? All right. So when Tanea and I did a workshop back in October, we had people put things on Jamboards. I figured that it's already 7:40, so we're just going to have this as a conversation.
Yeah, we're a small enough group.
We want you to think about how do your current grading policies reflect, I guess not reflect, but maybe match, or I don't remember the word I was going for. Yeah, how do they reflect, how do they reflect the goals of modeling instruction? And can you brainstorm any modifications?
I'll go. So
Okay.
One of the things, and I'm totally virtual now, and it's driving me crazy I'm trying to find a way to do this virtually has been really hard, because in the past, when I've had kids who are like that student A and do poorly on assessments, I like to try to assess them one-on-one. So during class, I'll pull them up and give them a small whiteboard and have them draw things out for me, have them explain to me verbally, because that's how they're learning a lot of the information is during discussion. So I want to have that discussion with them and be able to assess their learning that way. And I'll replace the grade that they may have gotten the test because I can assess the same things that I asked on that test that they didn't do so well on, because maybe the student doesn't do so well writing on paper. And so that's just been one of those things that trying to, we have a lot of connectivity issues. And I was telling Jess earlier that I have a lot of students who are watching multiple siblings or even grandparents during the day. And so they're in all this chaos actually just coming to class. So the fact that they're coming to class makes me super happy. And I'm not going to fail any kid that's showing up to class when they're trying to take care of. It's like they unmute and there is absolute chaos going on in the background because they're trying to monitor multiple siblings who are also at school on their computers while they come to school. But I think that giving my assessments, trying to do this on the computer is really hard for them, when in reality, I would probably call them up to my desk and have a whiteboard meeting with them one-on-one where they can write things down and they can show me and I can ask them questions and dig deeper to see whether they really truly understand or whether it was pencil and paper that got in the way.
I'd like to say that I've been thinking about, I give homework, I give grades, I give tests, I give points for things. And this year, since the pandemic started, I started accepting all late work. And any student who tells me that they want to reassess, I will figure it out and let them reassess on a test or anything, even though it's been super time consuming and it makes everything a little bit harder for me. That's where I'm at right now. And I'm leaning towards pointless grading. So instead of me assigning points for everything, just taking the things, the assignments that I feel like these are the things where students can grow and learn from. So maybe it's like they're doing like a claim evidence reasoning, and that's like really important. So maybe that's the assignment that I would provide them feedback on, and then the feedback would be what they would use to either make an adjustment or to grow and to learn, right? And depending on where they are, so I could say, okay, for this student kind of met that, they were able to do this CER or whatever it is. So I would assign this like the whatever a value, and if I felt like they still needed they needed some feedback to help them make improvements, I would say, okay, I'm going to put this place value in here, and then you could go back and you can make any adjustments and then resubmit it. So it's basically like you're not really grading things, you're just providing feedback. And I want to help the students to build like a portfolio so they can show what they know. And so I'm hoping to use OneNote to do that. But I haven't got to that point yet, but I've listened to a couple of sessions, and I have someone I'm going to talk to about it. So that's the direction I'm leaning in, like pointless grading, which is like not 100% pointless because my school still wants me to submit grades, but it's a lot of feedback that the kids would find useful that they can grow and learn from.
Tanea, I used to do something really similar to that, where the kids they basically collected all of their work, and I still did give them number grades on some things, but they at the end of the term would put together a portfolio, they basically would write a letter making a case for a particular grade, and there was a sort of rubric, but the online grade book with the daily reporting of what their grade is totally ruined it, because it was like they no longer felt like the grade was under their control because there were grades on this computer that was telling them. And it was just, I tried to ask my administration if I could just record assignments in there and not have it report out a final grade. And it wasn't, I don't know. I had this whole really involved portfolio system, and it kind of got killed by computer grading.
Yeah, I think that my grade book, I can control. There's a lot of things where I can say like this doesn't go in the final grade, or it does, or I can have grades removed or not show up in the final grade. So I think if I play with either Canvas or my Brophy grading system, I think I can make it work out. But let me just tell you, I'm at the point where I believe that they have given me too many students and they don't really want me to really give quality feedback. And if they don't start making these classes be a little bit smaller, I'm gonna start complaining. So, I think that to give quality feedback to students and really be available to help them grow and have some one-on-one time with kids, we need smaller classes. So there's all kinds of challenges. I'm just aware of what improvements I should be thinking about, and I'm gonna attempt to make some adjustments. I don't think it's perfect, and then if anybody knows a school out there that has this really open philosophy and way of thinking, let me know.
Yeah, that's like what I was thinking of is a lot of schools have like a set grading category, like this percentage is assessment, summative assessment, and then this percentage can be whatever else. And so that's like a really big struggle to work through. But I think that like our go-to like default assessment practices, like what are we assessing, are based on a system that's not really relevant anymore. So we're checking for content knowledge like a lot of the time. And when you really think about 21st century skills, creativity, collaboration, and the science and engineering practices, how often are those skills actually assessed or put in that summative assessment category? And, I think it's not often because it's hard, especially in the virtual type of environment. So I don't know. I think that that's like one of the big problems is the system is based on the old school, do you know the content? Well, now I can Google the content. So kids with better internet are going to do better on the summative assessments oftentimes.
Well, one thing I try to do with with my homework, like I said earlier, I try to focus on some of the really important things that bring out reasoning and such. And I won't give a grade until the student has written a reflection to show that they've read my feedback. And if they understand the feedback, then that if they show they understand what I'm saying and they can apply it, then that raises the grade. So essentially for those kind of assignments, if they've done that, they pretty much just like a full credit type of thing, as long as they've shown they've read the feedback. But I try not to show any grades until I know they've seen feedback. So, because I remember years ago being in a professional development with a feedback expert saying that students don't read the feedback if they have a grade. They'll just look at the grade and ignore the feedback. So that's one thing I've been trying to do more of, is have them reflect on the feedback, and then that will help their grade as well.
Out of curiosity, is anybody here, like what the grades that you give your students, does it impact the class that they're able to go to in the next year?
Yes. I work at a public school in the Philadelphia suburbs, and if you don't score at least a B- in an honors course, you have to get a parental override to move on to the next honors course. So we're a PCB sequence. So if you're not at a B- or above, the parents have to say, yeah, I know my kid's not qualified to go to chemistry based on the grade, but I want them to go anyway. And so it's a bit of a challenge as far as that goes. And then you have that conversation with the parent and you go, this is where the kid belongs, but their grades just don't reflect that. And so that's where I operate in the gray, and I can make any kid a B- that needs to be a B- so that it takes the edge off the parents. And I talk to my chemistry colleagues and I go, look, this is what's going on with this kid.
And I think I posted something about this on Twitter over the summer. My child's district they decide in 6th grade the math sequence for all of high school. In 6th grade, they decide the math sequence. So 6th graders, as I'm sure those of you who teach middle school, are sometimes immature, possibly. So those with executive functioning troubles, those who, for whatever reason, who don't do well in 6th grade, are prevented from taking advanced classes in high school unless there is a parental override. So that also means that the parents have to know how to work the system and how to demand the override. And if we look at whose parents are able to do that and who feel empowered to do that, it's not just they know, they have to feel empowered to do that. So there are a lot of things. In my school, there is a student who I had in one of my inclusion classes last year. And I'm like, he doesn't belong in here. Why is he here? Well, he hadn't done his homework for his biology class. He's incredibly smart. I pushed him up 2 levels to honors physics from my low level, my college prep 2 chemistry class into honors physics for his junior year, because that's where he belonged. He's still struggling to complete his work because that's who the kid is, but he understands the concepts and he is better able to challenge. Did I do the right thing? I don't know. But I made him go talk to the honors physics teacher. I said, this is my situation. I need you to listen to him talk. I want to respect all of your time. So we have a couple things that we wanted to get to in these last 7 minutes or so. A lot of these things we've been talking about already. We want to think about the impact of grading policies and how we can reevaluate our school and department policies. And let's be honest, not everybody has the power to do that. We're not expecting you to go in and change everything. But as Tanea said, you know, this is when you can have conversations. How are policies harmful? And I'm going to bring you back to my pain in the butt kid. If he is being told in November, it's pretty much impossible for him to pass his classes, what do you think the kid is going to do?
Nothing.
It's not right. He's going to say, well, people will say, well, he just has to get a B or has to get an A. If a kid has failed, does that even feel like it's in their reach?
This is actually why some kids drop out. They make the decision to drop out of high school. There's no reason to even keep going.
And I think really this is a reason that teachers need to talk to kids. You know, we're not teaching physics, we're teaching kids. If we see them in this situation, we should be having a chat with them. We should be having a chat with their parents, maybe, if we can't see that we're getting through to them. And I don't know how often that happens. And I know that it doesn't happen as often as it might because you teach too many kids. You teach too many kids every day. But, you know, somehow or another, and it's probably even multiplied by COVID and distance learning, and the fact that, you know, kids are sitting in front of their computers for 5 hours a day. And how much of that can they really take in? You know, so it's a really big deal.
Oops, sorry. Flipped to the wrong screen. We're workshop leaders, and that's why we're hosting this. And we talk about equitable grading practices as those are mathematically accurate. When we talk about ways that we're boosting kids' grades with things like extra credit or points for this, are those really reflecting Are they really mathematically accurate? I don't know. I honestly don't know. I think there's the conversations that we have to have. Are our grades bias resistant? If we are giving points, and I'm going to harp on extra credit again, people do things such as, hey, bring in canned goods for the food drive.
We're having a food drive right now.
And you'll get extra credit. It's worth a quiz. It can give you a freebie on homework. I've even heard of teachers, it's a free quiz grade to bring in canned goods for the food drive. But it sounds great, right? Like this is a way to encourage kids to be, socially responsible. But yeah.
I used to do that until the day a student brought in canned goods that obviously they had received from
a food bank,
being a person that went to the food pantry to get it.
Yeah.
And then I was like, okay, I can't do that anymore. You just can't do that.
It wasn't a judgment. It was like, because the ideas are beautiful. They really are. We want to encourage to think of ourselves as a community. I really do think best intentions. But then as we learn more, we grow. And then Jess added in bribery. Yeah, you're pretty much, hey, can I just give you the $10 for my grade? Because that'll count if I just, if it's 10 points onto my grade, can I just give you the money instead of actually having to bring in the canned goods? Same thing, right?
I mean, some schools have to have policies where you can't take certain gifts over a certain amount, because the parents are known to give vacations or whatever to the teachers. So that happens. Or cell phones or whatever else they have.
Carly added in the chat, armed participation, words in mouth. Armed participation grades is bribery for good behavior. Yeah, that's part of the conversation. What are we considering to be participation? We want our grades to encourage a growth mindset, and we're all here because we have these beliefs, but I feel like I often have to encourage people that a growth mindset doesn't mean everybody gets a trophy, but a growth mindset is you're not stuck where you are. We expect you to do better, so let's do it together.
And I would like to also say that what we think about a student, I don't think that ultimately matters, right? Like we might think somebody's smart, you might think somebody's dumb or whatever, but I try really, really hard to say, I'm not going to judge this kid that's walking in my door. This kid over here that's annoying, it doesn't shut up or whatever. I'm going to try to just pretend like that's the love of my life. Oh, this wonderful child is in my room and I'm just going to, and then I find I actually can have a better appreciation for this person. And I'm seeing that maybe we don't click right away, but this kid has a lot to offer if I just give him a chance, right? So I try not to let my initial judgments and things cloud how I'm going to relate to somebody, because I'm wrong. I'm usually wrong about somebody I don't know. And I'll just say, based on my personal experiences, because my teeth were all crooked when I was little and my tongue would stick out because I had a big gap in my my mouth. Teachers just thought I was stupid, and they were pretty that's what they thought, and they would put me in these damn classes with the stupid kids, and then my mother would have to come to the school and curse everybody out. She'd be the angry Black woman, and she would curse people out. And literally, she'd be like, you better test my daughter and you better get her in the right class. And so I would literally be forced to take some standardized tests to prove that I was smart enough to be in the advanced class with the other kids. And, in the classes, the lower classes, it was usually the students of color. So, and then my mother would get frustrated because she would feel like they weren't treating me right, and she would end up yanking me out of school. It was just a mess and a half. So based on that experience, I will say, it doesn't matter what I personally think about a kid, whether I think they're smart or because what's smart. We have these ideas in our head about what smart is, what smart isn't. So just try to give everybody the same equal opportunity as much as possible, because we don't know what someone's capable of at all. We don't know.
And I guess the last one we want to talk about were grades are feedback. And they're only going to be useful feedback if we allow them to demonstrate they have learned. If they have built a conceptual model, well, now they have to refine it. Now they have to change it. And we develop our own conceptual models about who our students are, and we need to constantly have evidence and reevaluate, and our students need to be doing the same about themselves and their learning. And for us, we need to encourage them to make sure that they know that they can and should be learning. And we've already talked about our impediments to moving forward. And it's already 8:01, so we're really going to be respectful of your time. Sorry that I was a minute late there. I just threw the link to our presentation in there if you want. So here yeah, Tanea, go ahead.
There's some good there's some podcasts on there that are really worth listening to, just to get some different perspectives about how other teachers have handled this and how it's like made them a more like a teacher that's become sane, like a teacher that's happy, who loves their profession, how changing the grading has really shifted like how they feel about their job. And think about how you can include this in your workshops. There are readings that you can offer. You can have discussions on this at the beginning of the day in your workshop. But look at some of those resources, and if you want to share later, we're open to like taking more resources and sharing it out with the group as well.
And also, you can also assign your participants podcasts. It's a nice change from always having them read. I'll have it listen. We are respectful of your time. So feel free to leave it as after 8 o'clock, and everybody's incredibly busy. I'm happy to stay on for a few more minutes before I have to put the holiday up. But welcome to 2020. Anything else, Tanea? What else have we missed? Everything.
No, I mean, I think the most important thing is that if you don't take the time to think about like, how is AMTA as an organization not just going to say they're equitable, but how do they weave equity into everything that they do? And starting with those relationships that we're building with the people who come to our workshops. I think that we have a mission to help, or our role as workshop leaders is to help AMTA kind of serve their mission. And AMTA has said that this is important to them. And so we should be able to support in that effort, in that endeavor. And I think that it will make the workshops more rich. At least that's, some of the feedback that I've been given, that people have enjoyed making that space to have these conversations about how we can improve our teaching, not just in terms of the content, but in other ways too.
Agree 100%, Tanea.
And it's going to make these workshops ultimately more useful to those participants, because this is the world they live in. These are the problems they grapple with. And so give that some air and some space in your workshop. I think it's important. You guys did a great job. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think too, like grading, real quick, like grading always comes up in the workshops, and it comes up like frequently. So after this session, I feel like I have some concrete, solid talking points to bring up that like tie right back to equity, which is awesome. And then I love the podcast instead of reading, like that night. Like, if that topic comes up over and over again, it's like, hey, you guys wanted to talk about grading, so here we go. So thank you guys. That was really helpful.
Yeah, I know it's topic of, like when we're having whiteboard meetings, topic of how do you grade this? I don't think I've ever in a workshop where somebody hasn't brought that up as part of some conversation. How do you grade this?
Yeah, that always comes.
Why would I grade this? So it's good to be able to talk about it from an equity lens.
Sure.
And also you can get people who will support each other in that process. As you got to do it alone, a lot of times you're like, I'm not going to even bother, but if you have people who are going to help you work through that change, it's more likely to happen. So
yeah. And I mean, I changed my grading practices at my school. I was the only person to change it. And I was able to do so because, my best friend's Teresa at a different school. So we worked, because of course we're going to sit and work on our learning goals together, because that's what we do for fun. And then, hey, now the
Nice
bio,
way to live.
but it was true when you know it. But then we can have like the bio teacher who I really like, and I've been like, she does modeling in the classroom now. She's taking the workshops, and now all of a sudden she's having these deep conversations with me about equitable grading practices and how our rank book, the actual grade book, should be different than what that report card says. Because do I think it's important to keep track of who's doing the homework as feedback? Yeah, personally I do. I think that's really good feedback. To say, hey, your child, or hey, you seem to be struggling on these learning objectives. Additionally, I've noticed you haven't been completing this homework. The homework can help provide the practice that you need to understand this content. But do I think that should go into their report card grade? Personally, I don't think so. That's me.
I mean, I'm rethinking what education is even about. If education is to maintain these, like I said, the haves and the have-nots, and we're doing a great job of doing that. We're maintaining the status quo and whatever else. But if we want to shift the world and change things, then we need to change up our educational system. And I think that we can do that. A little, little small changes here and there, makes a difference. Like I've been complaining about my school for 6 years, and now I'm like, oh my God, they're actually doing this. I can't believe, I'm having a heart attack.
The squeaky wheel. Good for you.
So we're having these conversations at my school. It's so exciting.
Yeah. I don't know. I have a great quote from Paul Hewitt, author of